So Chelsea put Tottenham Hotspur on the brink of relegation as they beat them 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. And like I said in my other video where I'm talking about Arsenal and them winning the Premier League, I can't talk about this game in as depth as I normally would, simply because yesterday my fiber stick was playing up. And like I said in my last video, hey, if you've got any alternatives, you know what I'm saying, hey, shout me, you know what I'm saying, shout me so things like this don't happen again. Because yesterday I couldn't, do an in-depth analysis on the Bournemouth City game or this Chelsea Tottenham game, unfortunately. But even this video, it's not about this game specifically. I want to talk about Tottenham's season as a whole, you know what I'm saying, just Tottenham's season, Tottenham's situation just as a whole. Because let's be honest, Tottenham potentially getting relegated on the last day of the season doesn't come down to them losing at Stamford Bridge. Let's be real, they lose at Stamford Bridge every single year. I'm pretty sure they've got like one win in like 30 years. I remember, Dele Alli scored 2, Ericsson scored a banger at Stamford Bridge. I'm pretty sure I think that was 2018. But apart from that, when was the last time Tottenham actually won a game at Stamford Bridge? Even when they were 2-0 up in that famous game where Eden Hazard scored the goal to win Leicester the Prem, they couldn't get it done. So Tottenham losing at Stamford Bridge is not the reason they're getting relegated. They lose at Stamford Bridge every year. Let's be honest. However, Tottenham's situation is so confusing because the signs were there last season. However, the Europa League, it covered a lot of cracks. You know what I'm saying? It papered over a lot of cracks simply because when Ange was going for that Europa League, the narrative was, yo, we don't care about the Premier League. We're just using those games as, warm-up games, training sessions. Our focus is on the Europa League, you know what I'm saying? So then that tricked people, or that made people think, yo, this Tottenham team, they aren't that bad, you know what I'm saying? They aren't that bad. They're simply just focusing on the Europa League. And then especially when they got the job done against Man United, when they beat Man United, it was like, all right, cool. Tottenham, we got a Europa League trophy. The fans were happy. That 16th place or 17th place finish, they just sort of dismissed it because obviously at the time they had the right to do so. They'd won their first trophy since 2008, so everything was good. But in the background, everyone should have looked at that Tottenham squad and look at it and go, yo, this is an average squad. This squad does not have anything whatsoever. I know they had injuries, but they had time to plan for these injuries last year. Maddison, Kulusevski and Bergvall all did not play in that final. Spurs knew, yo, they're going to be out long term. We need some new players, you know what I'm saying? We need some new players. Even if we might have to overspend on certain players, we need some new players to bolster the squad, because Tottenham Hotspur as a club with their stadium, this team should be playing European football every single year. Potentially, especially now with 5 teams every single year, potentially 6 teams in the Prem being able to play Champions League football. They should be there, you know what I'm saying? Tottenham should be there. Tottenham should be there like they were under Pochettino every single year. They should be in the Champions League. This is a club that have got to a Champions League final, you know what I'm saying? They've got to a Champions League final. They lost, but hey man, they've got there. This is a club that should be there. But you look at their team, and yes, they got the win against Wolves. Yes, in my opinion, the performance against Aston Villa was very good from them. But let's be honest, they needed an 80th minute winner from João Palhinha against the already relegated Wolves. Aston Villa played their B team against them, you know what I'm saying? Still give Spurs credit, they played well. A lot of their players did play well that day, but they did play against the Aston Villa B team. We've seen what Aston Villa, when they're up for something, what they can do to teams like they did to a Nottingham Forest. And I look at this Spurs team and I just go, yo, a lot of these guys are just not at their levels, man. They're just not at their levels. I heard Lias Bouzidi. I remember Lias Bouzidi. I think it was like the first season of me watching SDS. I think it was like 22, 23. He always used to describe Everton. For some reason, this always used to stick with me. He always used to describe Everton as having the least individual quality in the Premier League. That's what he'd say every single week. Every single week they talk about Everton. He says, yo, this Everton side have the least individual quality in the entire Premier League. And I'm not gonna lie, that might apply for this Tottenham Hotspur team. When you look at it, as currently constructed with the injuries, they might have the least individual quality in the entire Premier League. I'm not gonna lie. When you go from top to bottom on who they can rely on in terms of quality, whether it's set defenders, midfielders, especially attackers, I think that statement might hold true. They literally, probably barring Wolves and Burnley, they might have the least amount of individual quality in the entire Premier League. That's their problem. They're not really that cohesive as a unit because De Zerbi has just come in. They've had about 3 managers this season. But in terms of individual quality, I just don't see it. And if you're a team who's lacking individual quality, you need structure. You need a manager who plays a system, you know what I'm saying? And they have neither. And all of this has just compounded in their relegation, has compounded in this just disastrous season, you know what I'm saying? And I just feel like, they don't have individual quality, any structure, and they haven't really got a lot of heart, a lot of leadership, you know what I'm saying? Christian Romero, unfortunately, he's injured. He's potentially going to miss the World Cup, you know what I'm saying? But even when he was playing, he was being rash. He wasn't stepping up as a leader. He wasn't, getting sent off, silly mistakes, you know what I'm saying? Getting sent off in North London derbies, all of that, you know what I'm saying? Van der Ven, he's taken the captaincy role. He isn't bad, Van der Ven, but I just don't see a leader. I just don't see a guy who's going to, galvanize the troops. I will never forget against Sunderland. It looked like he was going to cry, bro. It looked like he'd accepted his fate as relegation against Sunderland. They lost 1-0. The guy looked like he wanted to cry, you know what I'm saying? There's just no leadership in that Spurs dressing room, along with the individual quality. I look at, their front line. I look at, Richarlison, Tell, Kolo Muani. I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying? Maybe if they played for other teams and, their squad, they can be squad players for other teams. But in terms of, being the main guys, I just don't see it. I look at their midfield especially. You look at Gallagher, Bentancur, Paulinho. I like Bentancur, to be fair, but Paulinho, Gallagher. I don't know what happened to Yves Bissouma, man. Let me know, you Spurs fan, what happened to Yves Bissouma. I know he was, he was small, he was doing the laughing gas and all of that, but his head is just not right, to be honest, because I thought, me personally, at Brighton and his early days at Tottenham, he looked like a brilliant player, a brilliant midfielder, you know what I'm saying? Sort of regarded as how Balaba's regarded now, as how Caicedo was regarded at Brighton. He was the first one, sort of, you know what I'm saying? He was that first, midfielder to come out of Brighton to, sign for a bigger team. So I don't know what's happened to Yves Bissouma as well. You look at the defense. I like Pedro Porro, to be fair, but even him, he can be a little bit wayward at times. His passing can be a little bit wayward. He can force stuff at times, going backwards as well. He can be caught out of position, but I do like Porro. Udogie is the same, caught out of position, can lack quality at times. Jed Spence, I like Jed Spence defensively. I think he's solid. Kevin Danso, you look at the team, the goalkeeping situation for me is an absolute joke thing. Vicario, even when Vicario was playing well at the start of the season, I always looked at Vicario and I was like, this is just a guy who, he just has no presence in the net, you know what I'm saying? He has no presence in the net. Anytime I see a corner whipped in against Tottenham Hotspur, the guy just looks tiny in the box. There's no presence, guys like David Raya, there's a presence there, you know what I'm saying? There's a presence there, David Raya is there. Even Donnarumma, I know he's not the best in the air, but you can see he's there, you know what I'm saying? There's a presence there. When Nick Pope was at his best for Newcastle, there was a presence there. Jordan Pickford, even though people clown him, he's got small arms, there's a presence there. With Vicario, I just look at the guy and I'm just like, this guy just has a mistake in him. You know what I'm saying? He just has a mistake in him. And then Kinski as well. He had that shocker against Atletico Madrid. He's recovered it slightly, you know what I'm saying? But I personally feel like he should have done a little bit better with that Enzo Fernandez strike, you know what I'm saying? Great strike by Enzo in the game, but in my opinion, Kinski should have really done better, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just don't know, man. This Spurs team, I've always looked at this Spurs team probably since what, October, November, since they've been on a downward spiral. I looked at them and I was just like, this team is below mid, bro. Like, I'm talking below mid. Like, and at least if they had a decent structure with a cohesive, unit, a cohesive coach, maybe this team could be mid-table, but they just have not had that. This is just a bang average squad of players who have just been in turbulence the entire season, man. And to be fair, hey man, it's been coming, You saw Jamie Redknapp crashing out. Jamie Redknapp was saying that, yo, Spurs have just lacked ambition, even when he was at the club, which is a big thing for him to say as a former Tottenham captain. He said he always felt Spurs just had a lack of ambition, you know what I'm saying? James Maddison in his interview basically just said, yo, this season has been unacceptable. It's been, a disgrace. He even said to about his team, he was like, yo, attacking wise, we just have not had enough quality in the final third, and hopefully I can bring that. And when your best player is coming out saying things like that, it's true. And the crazy thing is, James Maddison's been out the whole year with an ACL injury. In his last 2 cameos, anytime he's come on, he's looked head and shoulders above the rest of the Tottenham players. So that's when the recruitment hasn't been good enough, you know what I'm saying? And even with the Jamie Redknapp thing, I have to agree with Spurs, man. Maybe this relegation, it just opens everyone's eyes, you know what I'm saying? Jamie Redknapp said that, yo, I expected this sort of thing to happen earlier. And to be fair, you even look at the Pochettino days, the lack of ambition comment, it rings very, very true, you know what I'm saying? It rings very, very true. I'll never forget the year that they literally spent zero. They spent zero. You guys remember that summer where Spurs did not sign a single player? I'm pretty sure, was that what? The summer of 2018. So you need to think about it. This is after the World Cup year, 17-18. You're telling me you've got Harry Kane, you've got Dele Alli, you've got Harry Kane at his best, Dele Alli at his best, Heung-min Son at his best. You've still got Christian Eriksen at the club. You've got Vertonghen. You've got Vertonghen. You lost Walker the summer before. But now you've got Trippier, who's emerging as a very, very good player. I said Vertonghen, out of viral. You still got Eric Dyer there. You got Moussa Dembele. Wanyama's still there. He's on his last legs a little bit, Wanyama, but he's still there as well. You're telling me you have this squad. You got Hugo Lloris still at his best as well. Hugo Lloris coming off a World Cup as the captain. You're telling me you have all these players and you spend zero, bro. The last 3 prior seasons, you come third in 15-16 in a 2-horse race, you know what I'm saying? Realistically, Spurs were the ones supposed to be challenging Leicester, but somehow they came third. We don't even know how. Then 16-17, you finished second behind Chelsea. At the time, who were based pretty much a record-breaking Chelsea. I'm pretty sure they had the record for the most amount of wins in the entire Premier League season until the next season when Man City got 100 points. But you come second. Then 17-18. I'm pretty sure Spurs got Champions League again. They got to a semi-final of an FA Cup. 16-17 semi-final FA Cup. 17-18. Once again, semi-final of an FA Cup, you know what I'm saying? Even, previously, 14-15, they got to a League Cup final. Throughout this whole entire run, they had won North London derbies. They had beaten Man City, beaten Man United, beaten all these teams, you know what I'm saying? They show that they can compete. And then you go out there and you spend zero, bro. You spend zero. And guess what? Pochettino still got you, man, to a Champions League final. And you still did not back the guy properly. You know what I'm saying? Pochettino still got Tottenham to a Champions League final after spending zero. You get me? After spending zero. I forgot to mention you had Lucas Moura as well. You know what I'm saying? You added Lucas Moura that season. And you got to a Champions League final and you still gave the man zero. You still showed no ambition, no sort of drive to, improve the team. You know what I'm saying? Really go for it. A window was there for Tottenham. You know what I'm saying? They have to look back at that period and be like, yo, a serious window was there. I'm telling you, that 14-15 all the way up to, I want to say 14-15 all the way up to probably 18-19. That sort of 4-5 year period, Spurs could have rattled off multiple trophies. Even if it wasn't a league or Champions League, they could have definitely got multiple FA Cups, multiple Carabao Cups, if they just decided to have some ambition and spend the money, back Pochettino, improve of what they got. But guess what? It was just a case of, we've got Champions League football, everything's all good, blah, 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 blah. And, that sort of mentality, when you settle in football, let's be honest, there's no sort of staying at the same level. You're either progressing or you're regressing, you know what I'm saying? And when you have this mentality of just sort of staying afloat, ultimately you're going to regress. And that's what's happened to Tottenham Hotspur. Slowly but surely, you know what I'm saying? They were regressing. They went from, challenging for league titles Then it was, all right, cool, we're getting top 4. Then it was, all right, cool, we're getting Europa League, but you know, we've still got Harry Kane, we've still got Heung-min Son, we're still getting Europe, so it's all good, you know what I'm saying? And then, but then even in European competitions, they're blowing what 3-0 leads to. Who was it they blew a 3-0 lead to under Jose Mourinho? I can't remember who it was. Was it like some Russian team they blew a 3-0 lead to? They had Gareth Bale in that team as well, and it's just been slow regression, until finally last year, they found themselves in a relegation fight. But then they got to paper over the cracks. They got to say, yo, hey man, it's all about Europa League. It's all about Europa League. It's all about Europa League, right? They got it done. Fair enough. It papered over the cracks. But guess what? In the long run, that Europa League trophy has probably done a lot of harm for them. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not as the fan base. They're probably happy with their trophy. But for the club, for the players, it's probably done harm. Because you look at Man United on the other side of the spectrum. That Europa League final loss, it allowed them to have a hard look at themselves. And yes, they did still keep Ruben Amorim, which was a bit mad. But you saw United, you saw their spending. They were spending differently, you know what I'm saying? That United's philosophy of, you know, just going after the big names, just going after, you know, the sexy, the attractive names around Europe. They stopped that philosophy. They started to say to themselves, yo, we need to build from the ground up. Let's get some Premier League proven players who can come in, make a difference now. They don't have to be the biggest name. We're not doing the Chelsea model where, you know, we'll sign some young players and hopefully sell them on in the future. No, we need players who can come in and make an impact right now. So they signed Cunha, they signed Mbeumo, and yes, them two have been inconsistent, but they've had moments this year that have resulted in them finishing third, you know what I'm saying? Matheus Cunha, especially, you know, the goal against Arsenal. Brian Mbeumo, goal against Arsenal. Brian Mbeumo, goal in a Manchester derby, you know what I'm saying? Even though their performances haven't been, you know, mad consistent, they've definitely come in, they've added some stardust to that United team, they've added some quality. Think about it, United went from Cunha, Mbeumo, Benjamin Sesko. They went to that from the season before. Who was it? Was it Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, all these sort of attackers? Hey man, it's a big upgrade, you know what I'm saying? It's a big upgrade. They had to, you know, United, like I said, they had to look at their spending. They had to tell themselves, yo, something needs to change. You know, they tried to get Baleba, another Premier League proven player, didn't come off, but still, they, you know what I'm saying, they tried. They redid their model, played one game a week, and it worked. Sacked Ruben Amorim, got him out of there, and it works. Now they're back in the Champions League. Now they can go again. Now they can spend, you know what I'm saying? Bruno Fernandes, their captain's about to win Player of the Year. It works, you know what I'm saying? But as for Spurs, yeah, man, I just think I agree with Jamie Redknapp. If you actually deep it and you look back, this is 10 years in the making if this really does happen. This literally is 10 years in the making, you know, 25, 26. This was going on from 15, 16, just a slow decline. Just being content making Champions League football every year, it leads to a slow decline. Look at Arsenal. Was content with just making Champions League football every single year. I know they had to pay off the stadium, but even after you know everything was paid off, just slow decline. Alright, what's it called? Second in the league in 15, 16. It went to third, then it went to fourth. Then it was like, alright, cool. We missed out on Champions League football, unfortunately. In 18, 19, they finished fifth. They lost the Europa League final. They missed out on Champions League football. Then 1920 went down to, what was it? Was it eighth? Was it back-to-back eighth place finishes? And then eventually Mikel Arteta came in and he built it back up. But you can see the stagnation in football. Once you stagnate in football and you lack that ambition to, you know, really stay on top, that's what happens. And as for Spurs, man, Jamie Redknapp said it himself, man, that this has been a long time coming, you know what I'm saying? And they probably deserve it. From the lack of quality with their players, but realistically, it comes from higher up, you know what I'm saying? The way the club's been run, he said the club has been run like a business, and I couldn't agree more, you know what I'm saying? Ever since they got the new stadium, it's been, you know, run like a business. I know other teams do certain things for their stadiums as well. They hold other entertainments, but with Spurs, it's always concerts, it's always the Super Bowl. Hey man, but it doesn't matter how big your stadium is, man. It doesn't matter, you know, how flashy, how attractive it is. when you have no heritage, when you have no history, when you have no team cohesion, when you have no, you know, no proper manager in the dugout, you have no proper players who are willing to go out there, perform and die for the badge. Hey man, the stadium, the commercials, the Super Bowls, the performances, it doesn't matter, man, because at the end of the day, you're a football club, man. If you don't take it seriously, if you don't run it properly, hey man, this is the situation you find yourself in, no matter how big of a club you think you are. And that's the reality for Tottenham Hotspur, man.